6 years since Gambia gained its independence. On this episode, we take a look at the journey thus far and the impact it's had on the smiling coast of Africa.
Silam betembo mento nyanta sing hakilo kiti berke salonko kadung independence men kono teng kulom me yalonko a nyanta male adum kudimalum fana bari aning do kolanat do kol me yalonko hakili do kol lamoyti sembe do kol lamoyti do kusifa jamal men yalonko tesito dorom wala si do an adum des ñu lonko dunya be yo nyaayela be de gambe jube la de gambe ko jube la jante la be la banko sambala nyame o kambala na men so don sinan fo banko mo le bi wala mu nyenti sa kata be ngake kilinti ngake hamme kilinti ngake ngani kilinti koko ben tema me yalon ka sintalantalan si wol bedam di si do ko ke nyola sa kata na banko men sa yiru ko fengo fen sa yiru bandi si o kata bereke fo banko na filosofia banko mol balonya sofia na banko stanya do ko me yalon ko wala be nyabi dina ngam fansoto do ko lam yalon ko mo kana mira ko do ko femal o kamala ngal yamari men birinnu hanem bi mesala wala kan na sabaro mota na ngane kilinti na hamme kilinti.
The Gambia gained her independence on 18 February 1965 from British colonial rule and became a republic within the Commonwealth on the 24th of April 1970.
Independence means decolonization. That is, Gambians themselves took over the country in terms of governance. So for me, yes, we had republican status on 24th of April 1970, but we became independent in 1965, 18th of February.
I see no reason why these dates should be mixed, and I think really we owe it to those who have fought for the independence of this country. We at least owe it to their memory, and even, out of courtesy also, to the sacrifices that so many Gambians have made, so that we will, gain independence and nationhood.
We will pay tribute to the leaders of African independence movement and the masses that serve as their support base. In spite of the fact that most of them are of blessed memory, their sacrifice, valor, and patriotism are still sources of inspiration for us to continue, redirect, and refocus the struggle for total political and socio-economic emancipation. I must pay homage to Edward Francis Small, whose pioneering effort my government has recognized. We also pay tribute to his other colleagues of blessed memory, all of whom, in one way or the other, struggled to end colonial exploitation. Our homage also goes to the first Prime Minister and later became the first President of the Republic of the Gambia, Alhaji Sadauda Kairaba Jawara, and his colleagues of the People's Progressive Party for their decisive role in the Gambia's independence.
We have here people we can call the leaders of the independence struggle. I am Gaba Jahumpa. He created the Congress Party, which was one of the parties who agitated for independence. I have Mr. Per Njai here, P.S. Njai, the lawyer, founder of the United Party. Was also another party created in 1954 which also led the struggle for independence. Side by side is Mr. Omar Mbake. He was the leader of the chiefs. In those days, district chiefs were very, very powerful. In fact, in the 1954 Constitution and 1960 Constitution, chiefs had 8 seats in the House of Representatives or the Parliament. Alhaji Sadawda Karaba Jawara, he took us into independence, and this is a very good photo. This was the day that Clifton Road was renamed Independence Drive to mark the attainment of independence. That is the thoroughfare. Going through the Gambian, capital. You have here Reverend J.C. Faye. He formed the first political party in the Gambia in 1951 called the Gambia Democratic Party. He also was really among the founding fathers. But their mentor and the man who really kickstarted the struggle for independence, Mr. Edward Francis Small here. He died 7 years before independence was attained, but through his journalism and through his politics, he was able to set the ball rolling for Gambia to attain her independence. Now, on the day itself, this is how Batos, our capital, looked like. There was a lot of decorations, flags, buntings. The streets were well cleaned, as you can see, to celebrate our attainment of independence. In fact, this photo was taken on the 18th February 1965.
Independence carries multiple meanings and significance to us as a nation. It is not simply about self-rule and freedom from foreign domination, but most importantly, it is about freedom of thought and action, leading to our growth and progress as individuals, families, communities, organizations, and as a nation.
Independence means freedom and nationhood. Freedom in the sense of, instead of things being dictated from England, from the colonial office during colonial rule, we make our own laws now. We elect people to make our own laws. We elect leaders to execute those laws. For example, independence means our flag as our national symbol. It's Gambia flag, red, white, blue, white, green. Yes. Okay? It also is a symbol of our independence. And even where we are standing, the National Museum.
In 1965, Gambia as a territory was given to Gambians to govern. We are free from colonialism. The Queen no longer became our head of state. We had a Gambian Prime Minister up to 1970 when we had a Gambian President. So for me, independence means having our own territorial sovereignty, where Gambians decide what happens in the Gambia and what happens with Gambians.
A colonial rule deliberately suppressed African culture and languages. This is why even today, we cannot write in our own languages, because the colonialists did everything to discourage that. Okay? But because colonial rule ended, we were independent, this museum was established so as to showcase the rich Gambian culture and heritage. Okay? And now, like, another homework left now is for us to valorize and start using our languages to write, to communicate. Okay? Just as we do English, French, or Arabic.
Our forefathers had on their side to get us free from colonialism, to make Gambia an independent sovereign state, at the same time also to build a nation state. We have to also understand context and history, and it is very important that we do. In the sense that the colonialists, when they sat in Berlin in 1885 to demarcate the African continent, to create spheres of influences by dividing the continent into pieces. So Gambia was created as a country, as a state. Therefore, what happens was that after independence, we had a country where you have different groupings living in one country, different religions, different tribes.
Some of the things our founding fathers aspired for, we have gained, like peace, like stability. We have a democracy. People can express their opinions. People have political rights. Okay, we have we have the ability to make friends. We established, Gambia has established like bilateral diplomatic relations with almost 200 countries in the world. So in that regard, we have done very well. But of course, still now, there is, like a lot to do. Economy, education, like in all the, sectors. In 1965, few people believed that we will reach the stage we are in. Some people even thought that the country will collapse few months after independence. There was no road network, for example.
And I think our forefathers their main task was to create a stable nation state that is democratic. And in my view, those who fought for independence, they succeeded in that view.
This auspicious occasion across the nation, the opportunity to take stock of our successes, challenges, and progress since the attainment of nationhood.
Independence is a process, it is also complex. There are aspects whereby Gambians really determine the destiny of this country. We have territorial sovereignty, we are part of the United Nations, we have one vote like any other country.
We are truly independent because now we are citizens in our own country. Before 1965, we were not citizens in our own country. We were subjects, subjects, of Her Majesty, the Queen of England. In those days, if you had a passport, maybe your grandfather, in that passport, you see what they put there? The British coat of arms. And they will say a subject of the colony of the Gambia. Since independence, we have our passports now. And they write there a citizen of the Republic of the Gambia. This alone is just one good example, the issue of citizenship. We are now only called citizens because we are independent. Whilst we are under colonial rule, in our own country, we had restricted rights, which made us to be subjects. A subject meaning somebody whom you can dictate to, punish, oppress, and yet that person had very, very little, rights.
But again, there are things that still are beyond our control. So we are not truly independent, especially economically, when we still have to rely on foreign aid and grants to run our country.
On 18 February 1965, Sadauda made a very important statement at MacArthur Square. He said, independence will not turn our groundnuts into diamonds. So he was warning everybody that independence was not like a passport to immediate prosperity and progress. The British were here for almost 100 years. So our quest for development is an ongoing project.
Like most other countries in Africa, particularly sub-Saharan Africa, even Latin America, no country can be totally independent, especially now when we live in a globalized world. Yes, there are still vestiges of imperialism, economically, politically, you name it. Politically, yes, we are independent. We have our own multi-party democratic systems. We have our own elections where we elect our own leaders without interference from outside, overtly, I may add that word. Economically, we are still dependent. We are still a dependent country, dependent on foreign aids, dependent on grants, dependent on development project support, dependent on the global markets, financial markets, dependent on foreign investors.
For the Gambia, our homeland, please rise and walk and pray.
Our anthem was written after a very, very stiff contest launched in July 1964. Gambians, non-Gambians, everybody was invited, as long as you were resident in the Gambia, to submit. Over 200 people, submitted. And the cabinet went through the submissions. And the anthem written, by Mrs. Howe and her husband, John Howe, who were British, civil servants here, was chosen. And it is a good anthem.
Gambia was a British colony. At that time, the British handed over the Gambia to us. When they handed over countries at that time, as was popular in most of sub-Saharan Africa, in fact other parts of the world, was that they give you a flag and a national anthem. So obviously we inherited the national anthem. We did not, like, as a country, give the task to somebody to write our national anthem. It was something we inherited. We had a choice at that time. It's either we scrap it after independence and create our own national anthem, which we did not do.
56 years, this anthem has survived. 56 years. It has survived the First Republic. The anthem has survived, military rule. The anthem has survived, Yahya Jammeh's rule. And even under this regime, the anthem is still in place. So it means there's a lot of good in the anthem. Okay? And there's a Gambian input, like Jalinyama Suso helped to write the the lyrics and also to tune it. Okay? Using his for the Kabadumbuya, the folkloric song. Yeah. So there's a lot of Gambian input into the anthem. Although the words were written, by a British couple.
For me, it's not about who wrote it actually. It's about what the message is. And I think our national anthem has a very strong message, which still today is relevant to our conditions, which is relevant to our situation, which is relevant to our context. For example, if you look at the first line, for the Gambia, our homeland, we strive and work and pray. That our homeland, which is the Gambia, the only thing we can do for the Gambia is that we have to strive hard, to work hard and to pray hard for this country, so that all can live in unity, because with unity, there is peace. So I think for us, it's to focus on the message of the national anthem rather than the message of who wrote it.
Nations to the Gambia river trail.
The young people must know history. So for me, I think the best way to educate generations yet unborn about our independence is to tell them about those who really fought for independence and the conditions under which they fought for independence and how they got us independence, and also tell them what we had, where we were at independence, at what stage of development were we at independence. So there could be that kind of comparison to latter generations, whether we've really made any progress as a nation or not.
Well, we need to educate them on independence by bringing them here, to the museum. In fact, some are outside. We encourage them to come to see these photos so that they will know we have to value our independence, because so many of our countrymen and women, like Hannah Foster, like Rachel Palmer, contributed to the independence we are now enjoying.
Tell them history. Tell them how we got independence. Tell them how those who believed in the Gambian project fought for independence. People like Lord Francis Small, people like PSR, people like Sadado Karaba Jawara, and anybody else at that time, all the four founding fathers, all those who negotiated, all those who fought hard to ensure Gambia was independent.
So that we don't take independence as a joke, and also so that we don't squander, the inheritance of independence.
I think that would be good for the generations yet unborn to know at what stages, the stages of our development, our travails as a nation, our ups and downs as a nation. So I think that history would be very instrumental for them to be able to forge a destiny ahead for this country.
This has been Gambia's 56th Independence Special, brought to you by Muso Media House. Join us on our social media platforms as we discuss more on this episode and many more. I am your host, Saida Batuli.